Never might be the answer to the question, when is the right time to sell your silver for many of you out there. But in all actuality, there is a right time. And we're going to try to answer this question in this video as we explore. In full confession, I might lean into the camp of those who would not likely sell my silver. It's an area where there is a little bit of a deficiency on my part because I don't have as much experience selling. Although, in my study of the markets and especially with what's happened in the last couple of months here, I've learned a lot, that's for sure. And I've had sold some or traded some, but nonetheless, there are times where it is more convenient than others to sell. And it boils down to what the right time is. And I'm going to answer the question first by turning that question around. When is the wrong time to sell your silver? And the answer to that question is when you need to. That's right. Now, that may sound fairly controversial because many people have needed to sell their stack for one reason or another, but that is essentially the most inopportune time, which one can make the argument that it is the wrong time to sell. Now, there are circumstances and situations where, even though it may be the wrong time, it is needed, it is necessary, and it could happen to any of us where we have run through any other kind of options and we need to sell some of our stack. But it does not necessarily make it a right time. And I think in this video, I'm going to answer the question as to the right time to sell your silver and when that is, and how to protect yourself so that you don't sell it at the wrong time when you need to. Now, Summit Metals, they're a company that you can use to buy and sell your silver. And they're a great company. They're a fast-growing company, one of the fastest actually in the nation. So I encourage you to check them out by clicking on the link in the description below. And they have options for buying and selling, and they make it as easy as possible either way you go. Now, when you talk about silver, most of us think about buying it to protect ourselves against an inflating dollar. That's right. In fact, what does it really mean by an inflating dollar? And this is one of those things, one of the biggest arguments for holding silver is to protect against an inflating dollar. Well, this essentially is value today has depreciated so much that if you go back to 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was enacted, that same dollar bill that you see right here was worth almost as much as this dollar bill, this $100 bill. That's right, a dollar carried a lot more weight back then than it does today, no question about it. But if we go back in even recent history, you know, the $5 bill just a couple of years ago is now the new $1 bill today. That really puts it into perspective. In other words, the value of the dollar is declining. This is why it's important to hold long-term for your silver, because the most inopportune time to sell your silver is almost immediately after you buy it, or especially in a down market. If the prices of silver goes down, well, you don't want to lose money, that's for sure, because you want to have your silver to preserve the money you have. It's about wealth preservation. That's what silver stacking is all about. You can't preserve your wealth if you're selling at a loss, especially if you're forced to do that. So you protect yourself by holding your stack longer, by utilizing dollar cost averaging. And that way you know what your average price you paid for over the long course of time. And it really does individualize as to whether or not you're preserving your wealth or not, because you can make yourself more protected, essentially, against the volatility of the market. And we've seen volatility in the market, especially recently. For most of 2025, we've seen silver prices absolutely skyrocket. We've been spoiled this year, aside from the most recent smackdowns in price that we've seen, and even with those two smackdowns that we've seen recently, and who knows where it's going to be by the time you see this video, we could see more pain. But nonetheless, if you dollar cost average, it's going to work out in the end to protect your wealth. And that's the most valuable thing that I think that silver stacking offers. Now, the other thing about the market is even when the prices go up, The market is certainly volatile, and not only volatile in terms of its price movement, but volatile in terms of supply chains. The supply chain is absolutely crucial and important. We can celebrate high prices all day long, but if you go to sell your silver and the local coin shop or dealer will not take your silver, what's the point? It's not liquid, especially the constitutional silver that you see here. There are places that have been turning it down recently. Absolutely will not take it. In fact, if you want to buy it, you can get it for under spot now. That is the ever dynamic change that we're seeing in the market. And I think that is quite profound and pretty amazing, actually, when you think about it, because of the glut of silver that has been made its way through in its run up to $50 an ounce. A lot of people were selling. It created a glut of product out there, even though there's a shortage of industrial silver that has caused the prices to go up. There's kind of a paradox there. And that paradox has made it very inconvenient for silver stackers who want to liquidate. Hence why not all silver is the same. And we're seeing that. They were wanting eagles. Eagles you could still sell back. They're the most essentially liquid of the silver coins out there. Any kind of sovereign coin, but especially silver eagles here in the United States, were pretty much still in demand. Although there was a time when there was a great demand for them, so much demand that you were paying very, very high premiums when you went to buy them, and you were getting very, very high premiums when you sold them back as well, above spot price. So that's the dynamic shift in the markets, and you can fall victim to that if you need to sell in order to liquidate your silver for an emergency. And that's just it, an emergency. Now, how can you protect yourself against such an emergency? I believe in diversifying your stack first and foremost, and that means that I think now is a good time to buy constitutional silver, precisely because it's a down market for constitutional. You can get it for under spot. But back during the original silver squeeze of 2021 and 2022, constitutional was selling for quite a premium. Yes, indeed. And those times could come back again. The market will fluctuate for sure, and constitutional will come back into favor again if you are a seller. And so therefore, you're not going to get burned on it. So diversify your stack, even within one precious metal as silver. And that's the key. Because the market will shift. There's going to be times when your local coin shop will have enough silver and they won't buy any of it, including maybe even eagles. And that could just depend on your area and your circumstance in your general area. And you know, what we're seeing recently was certainly something nationwide and even global. But nonetheless, I also believe in strongly holding enough of these Federal Reserve notes, and even though they are a losing proposition, they are what is known as unsound money or bad money, whereas silver is sound money over the long course of time. The dollar is always a losing proposition. However, it is the most liquid currency out there here in the United States, especially, obviously, and your currency in your nation is also the most liquid asset out there. Anybody and everybody will accept them. And unless there's hyperinflation, that's a different story, but none of us are witnessing that at this point in time. We are experiencing inflation, there's no question, but have enough of these on hand to protect yourself so that you don't have to liquidate your silver stack. This acts as an insurance policy against having to sell at a loss or having to sell in inopportune times. And that's really what it boils down to. Now, when I say when you sell your silver because you have to, there are circumstances where you blow all the way through your cash reserves or your savings. And you can have an emergency that's so big and so large that you've blown through all of your other protections, and then you need to dip into your silver stack. But very rarely will you have to sell it all. And so that's really the point what I was making. So you don't want to sell it at a loss. You don't want to sell at inopportune times where you can at least preserve your wealth. And so that is why it's good to be diversified. That's why it's good to protect your stack with cash, even though it may not make sense when you think about the value of the dollar compared to the value of silver over the long course of time. And so that is really the bottom line. Now, when is the right time to sell? When you can either make money on it, and such as has been the case for a lot of 2025, but also in the with a ripe market where you can either profit from your silver or you can sell it and break even, or maybe even make a little bit of money because you've dollar cost averaged so long for an opportunity. That's right. There's times to sell that can be an opportunity for you. And maybe it's paying off your mother's house, such as one stacker in this community has done. Maybe it's paying down your own mortgage, or paying off a car, or getting out of debt from some other situation, or taking profits and investing it in some other avenue. But in most of those situations, it's always good to have a core silver stack on hand, a stack that does not move, does not budge. That's known as the perma stack. And I believe it's important to have some of that as well too, but you can make your stack work for you and maybe even profit from it if you find the right time to sell. And that right time can be opportunistic and or it could be profit taking. But nonetheless, that happens a lot in the markets for sure. But a silver stack that is there in your possession, I think long term is absolutely profound. And in this case, I think we're going to see times where silver's price is going to fluctuate. The market is going to fluctuate in general as to what's going to be accepted or not accepted, and what price below spot that you're going to get for your metal. All of that has to be weighed in before you sell. But in the end, it really does boil down to your own personal situation at hand. But protect yourself as much as you can. You protect yourself from the dollar, from institutions by holding silver in physical form, and you also protect yourself against economic instability, inflation, and all of that by holding silver, and you protect your stack with other areas of diversification outside of precious metals so that you don't have to liquidate it at exactly the wrong time. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.